Imagine a sport that has the offense and defense of basketball and soccer combined with the physicality of wrestling and rugby, all the while using the endurance of swimming. Now imagine that sport with your opponent constantly pulling you underwater in a pool so deep that you can't touch, that you're being forced to tread the entire time. This sport is water polo. Water polo is a great combination of a multitude of sports and is one of the most physical and physically demanding sports in the sports community, making it one of the best for full body conditioning. Water polo is not a very well-known sport nationally and is very niche, played mainly in California and Texas. For this reason, not many people realize what encompasses water polo. It's not just the physicality that surprises them, but the strategy that is used during games. Today, I'm going to take the time to explain the basics of offense and defense, as well as why it's one of the best sports for conditioning your entire body. In order to understand water polo, you need to understand its history. Although its history is fairly short and simple, it explains much about how the game evolved into what it is today. The National Water Polo Association explains that water polo originated in the mid-18th century as an in-water game that was a combination of rugby and soccer, appropriately called water rugby football. The sport started as a giant wrestling match with goals, but as the sport progressed and made its way into the Olympics in 1900, the strategy of the game became just as important as the physicality. Water polo is now played in a 30-meter long by 20-meter wide pool. There are two teams of 7 players in the water, with 1 goalie and 6 field players. Now, for a basic offensive setup, the setup's called a 3-3 setup, with 3 players at the bottom, closest to the goal in a line, and then 3 players above them on the perimeter. The key to a good water polo offense, much like in basketball, is ball movement. Passing the ball quick and accurate on the perimeter is essential. Using techniques like give and go, which means passing to one person and then immediately passing to the next, allows the offense to create better scoring opportunities, as the defense never knows where the ball is going to end up. The main goal of the perimeter passing is to open up the defense around the player closest to the goal. The player closest to the goal is called the set, and with the right ball movement, the defense will open up enough for a split second to give a give and go pass right to the set in front of the goal and then score. This is one of the 2 most common offensive setups. The second most common, also like basketball, is to drive players from their position to the middle of the offensive setup and then back out into a different position, in the hopes that in the confusion, the defense will leave behind an offensive person and then they can have a free shot. There are 2 ways that defenses can combat both these offensives. The first is with a man-on-man defense. In a man-on-man defense, each defender is responsible for covering an opposing player and limiting their movement and passing options. This is done by pressing, which is a technique where you put your non-dominant hand on the offensive player and essentially try to push them down the pool away from the offensive zone. With everyone in a defensive press, it allows more open space in the middle for the defense and also spreads apart the offense so that it becomes much harder to pass and shoot. The second form of defense is zone defense. This is normally used when the opposing team has a really good player right in front of the goal, as a zone allows more space for the offense on the perimeter, but allows less space right in front of the goal, where it's the most dangerous scoring opportunity for the defense. As you can see, water polo's offense and defense are much like basketball and soccer, where you have to patiently pass around and wait for other players to cause confusion in the defense before you make a scoring move. All of this movement and physicality is what makes water polo a full body conditioning sport. Water polo makes you a full body conditioned athlete, as not only do you have to not Water polo makes you a full-body conditioned athlete not only to play better, but to avoid the plethora of injuries that researchers Milenko-Franik, Alan Ivankovich, and Ratko Rudik outlined in their paper about injuries and water polo. The injuries they researched were knee injuries, shoulder injuries, and spine injuries being the most common. They explained in their paper that the constant wear and tear causes many of these injuries. This is why a constant full-body training and practice is seen in water polo due to the physical nature of the game and how it affects your entire body. As you're using your legs to tread water for an entire game, your shoulders to shoot, and the rest of your body is being contorted while wrestling under the water. The full-body aspect of water polo allows you to train your entire body at the same time, and these trainings allow you to maintain a much stronger body as an individual. Overall, water polo is a Frankenstein sport that combines the best from other sports, throws them all into a pool, and makes one of the most exciting sports in the world.